Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor here. So glad you are with us on another Saturday evening where, at least here in Denver, it is cold and snowy, and the roads are getting slick, and my car is getting all snowy, and life is good. Welcome to Free. If you're new with us, welcome. We're glad you're here. If you stumbled on us by accident, well, stick around. There may be a reason you're here. If you want to know a little bit about who we are a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. That's what we're about in this place with these people. And by the way, why do we call it free? Because all the things that set us free, grace, compassion, love, forgiveness, these are the things that are so freely given by God. They set us free. So welcome to Free. I want to let y'all know, it's been a while since I've shared with you about our app. We have a free app. Do we have a video with this app? I think we do. We have a free app, and it is free, no cost. Go download the app because it's one of the ways you can stay connected with us. By the way, we just did our first notification. We pushed out our first notification about an hour ago. Give us some hearts if you received that notification. Show some love, and if you didn't, you just have to, again, sign up for the app, download the app. You can do it on Roku, iOS, Apple TV, Android, all the ways you get an app. It's everywhere. So download the app, stay connected with us, and hit the yes button on notifications. We are not going to send you notifications every day, but for important events like tonight, we're going to send you some a notification. So hit the yes button. All right, we are going to jump in. First, I should let you all know we're in a new series tonight. We're starting a new series. I'm excited about this one. We're a community for, as I said just a minute ago, addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. So there's 3 prongs to this community. This one's for you all who identify as the loved ones of. This series is called Boundaries, Loving the Addict in Your Life. We're going to talk about boundaries, the hard stuff. But before we do that, the way we begin here, and Shandra Blosser is in the house tonight as our guest storyteller. I can't wait for you all to hear some of her story. It's going to be fun tonight. But before we get to all the fun stuff, let's start with some more fun stuff, which is celebrations. It's how we start things here in the Free community. We start by celebrating. We don't ignore the hard stuff. We don't avoid it. But we also don't start with it. We start with the good, the sobriety anniversaries, birthdays, new babies, new life, new jobs, all the new things that are happening. We start with the celebration. So take 3 minutes, get vulnerable in the comments either on YouTube or Facebook, and give us the good news. Let the community in. Lift these things up to God because God is celebrating with us. We believe that here. So give us the good stuff in life, 2 minutes. And then we'll come back and celebrate together.
People ask me what my secret is. I just smile and say, follow me. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Life's too short not to really live. I got a big heart, I can let you in. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. On top of the world. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. On top of the world. People ask me what my secret is. I just smile and say, live for today. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the sun came up and I gotta say, see it in a whole new way. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. On top of the world. Yeah. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. On top of the world.
All right. He says always this one. Welcome back, everybody. Tammy Candidate is
What's
in
up,
the
everybody?
house by my side, right here, taking the lead on things. You want to start?
I would love
Kick
to.
things off? Maybe.
I got a celebration, and I know that Lou had one in the house too, but celebrating you and your 8 years that you had this past week, that's a pretty big deal, y'all. There's a difference.
Thank you. It is a big deal. Thank you.
It was a different story, plus 8 years ago.
It was a different story. You know, I said that on Facebook this week that 8 years ago I hated myself. I was lonely. I was everything was a wreck interior wise, and now things are, man, it's like sobriety gives us our lives back, gives us new lives. So, yeah, thank you all. Thank you all for being a part of it. We do this stuff together here.
Kind of proud of you.
Oh, thank you, honey. You've been
Kinda
a
like
huge
you.
support to me, by the way. This lady right here, the bomb diggity. Did I just say bomb diggity? The bomb diggity. All right, let's celebrate some other people, shall we?
Go for it.
Jason McKissick says, celebrating life and a new year.
Yeah,
All right, Jason,
Jake.
we're going to celebrate that with you, brother. Glad you're part of this community.
Jennifer, she celebrated 16 months on the 7th. So 16 months and 2 days. Blessed and so grateful. Yes.
All right, Jennifer.
That's big. Danny's got one.
12 new people online watching.
Woohoo!
Hey, welcome to
Welcome,
the
guys.
12 brand new people who are with us tonight online. So good to
Yes.
have you here tonight. Welcome,
Heck
welcome,
yeah.
welcome, welcome to Free. If you've got questions along the way or comments, drop them in and we will try to interact with you along the way. All right, let's keep celebrating.
Cindy says celebrating Dan's birthday this week with family. Yeah.
Happy birthday, Dan! All right, back to Jennifer. She says Wagon Coffee was a big hit in Durham, North
yeah.
Carolina. Woot woot. I know y'all just did a fundraiser, so way to go, Jennifer. We're
Yeah.
going to celebrate that with you and
was
Wagon
really good.
Coffee.
Super successful and so grateful to get the word out about Wagon Coffee over there in North Carolina. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. From Roy, yeah, Jennifer, so proud of you. He's celebrating her 16 months as well.
Yeah, we'll celebrate people celebrating people. How about that? That's the way we do it. Missy, all the way in, it's Washington, right? Yeah.
There it is.
Washington in the house. Sometimes you just got to keep reading. Welcome, Missy, and everyone who's with you. I think you all are gathered as a house tonight, so in a free circle, all the way up in Washington State.
Good,
Welcome,
good.
glad to have you all. So fun to have you guys.
And there it is.
Watching
there it
Free
is.
and sharing with my Washington tribe, I think.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, if you have more celebrations, keep them coming in. We'll keep celebrating with you throughout the evening,
I'll see you in
so
a bit.
keep coming. Thank you, Tammy, for being with us. And yeah, you can drop those comments in all week, actually. I mean, there's nothing that says we got to stop the celebration when it hits midnight, right? We can keep the party going, keep things going. All right, we are going to jump into our new series, Boundaries, Loving the Addict in Your Life. Here's a little 10-second video to kick things off. Here it comes. All right, y'all, this evening I want to talk with you about a psalm and you being crammed with greatness. Then I want to talk about boundaries and Jesus and how all of this ties together. And I want to just say from the very beginning, this series called Boundaries, Loving the Addict in Your Life, I want to just say from the outset that as your pastor, I want to tread lightly. I also want to tread with lots and lots of grace, because I know that if you identify in that category of the loved one of, well, we're talking about some of the hardest stuff here, boundaries. We're not just talking about stuff, we're talking about heart stuff. So if you're in that category, just know that tonight and this week and for the next 2 weeks, because it's a 3-week series, know that grace upon grace upon grace upon grace is with you during these weeks. Now, there's a place right in the middle of the scriptures. It's called the Psalms. If you open up right to the middle, it's a collection of poems and prayers. It's in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. We've talked about the Psalms here before. And there's actually 150 of these Psalms. But Psalm 8 is where I want to land tonight. In just 2 verses in Psalm 8. Because right in the middle of this psalm, verse 4 and 5, the psalmist is crying out to God with the community overhearing him, and here's what he says. Verse 4 and 5, just two verses right in the middle. What are human beings that you are mindful of them? What are human beings that you pay attention to them? Yet you have made them only slightly less than divine and crowned them with glory and honor. Now, here's why I love this psalm. Because it's this big, over-the-top language. In other words, the psalmist is saying to his community, he says, look, do y'all get it? We are just like a collection of dust. We're made of dust. We're just a collection of molecules. Here one day, then gone the next. Here for a few years, and then we're gone. And yet you're crowned with glory and honor. Now listen, I get it. Not many of us talk that way today, do we? Not many of us use that language, do we? I don't know about you, but I did not wake up this morning and Tammy rolled over in bed. You know what she didn't say to me? She did not say to me, my goodness, honey, you are just crowned with glory and honor. She didn't say that. Did y'all say that? No, y'all didn't say that either. We don't talk that way, do we? But check out what the psalmist is saying. There's a dignity and a value to being human. There's a holy, sacred dimension to you being a human being. That you reflect the divine image. God is in you. Therefore, you, my brothers and sisters, are crammed with greatness. Now, why do we start here? Similar to where we started last week, by the way. Why do we start here? Because it's a new year. It's a time when many of us are asking big questions in our life. We're reflecting on the past. We're reflecting on the present. Lots of people, though, here's what happens, at least in my experiences and observations. When we start that reflection process, lots of people stop right after that first part, after the first verse that we read. Here's how that plays out. Yeah. Why would God pay any attention to me? Why would God care about me? I'm just a little fish in a big pond. Why would God care about me? Yeah, I'm just made of dust. I'm just a collection of molecules. I'm just, and you see how easy it is to begin to live into that story of shame. Do you see how important it is to keep going to verse 5, that second part of the psalm that we read? Do you see how important it is to know fully who you are? Not just made of dust, not just a collection of molecules, but there's the and yet crowned with glory and honor. My brothers and sisters, you are crammed with greatness. That is where the story begins. And remember where we started last week, all the way back in Genesis chapter 1, the first of two creation stories, where the story is good. Remember where God steps back after creation, day 1, day 2, day 3. After day 6, God says, this isn't just good. This is really good. The story is good. It isn't fundamentally flawed. You are not fundamentally flawed. The story is good. It's always been good. Now, also, as we talked about last week, there's lots of ways that you and I can make a mess of things, isn't there? We talked about the disruption of shalom, that ancient Hebrew word, the concept of peace and completeness and wholeness. There's lots of ways we can disrupt shalom. There are lots of things that can pull us away from the story. Now, again, in my experience, one of the primary things that will pull you away from the story of who God created you to be is a lack of boundaries in your life. Because I can't tell you all how many people who are putting their lives on hold. This year, they're putting their life on hold because of a lack of boundaries. So here's what I want to do just for the next couple of minutes. I want to explore boundaries with you, and I want to do it through 3 lenses, 3 questions. 3 very simple questions. We'll throw them on the screen for you. And the first one is, what are we talking about when we talk about boundaries? And number 2, how does our faith inform the way we think about boundaries? And number 3, what do boundaries have to do with the greatness that's crammed inside of you? So 1, what do we talk about when we talk about boundaries? What are we talking about? We're talking about, what do you do with those awkward, tense, oftentimes toxic relationships? What do you do with them? How do you think about these relationships? How do you interact with those relationships that don't bring you life, but they drain you of life and they suck all the life out of you? You know, I've learned that we can ask a really important question along the way. If you're sitting here thinking to yourself, I don't know, do I have these relationships? Do I have these relationships in my life? Ask yourself this question. What does this relationship do to me? Does it inspire? When you hang out with this person, does it steal your energy? Does this relationship always have a way of telling you how you're not enough? Here's a question you can ask. Do you have to go through some sort of detox process after hanging out with this person? Yeah. Some of you have people in your life who have this supernatural ability to say something to you, and still 3 days later you're replaying that thing that they said to you. Maybe it was a text, an email, a phone conversation, an in-person conversation. They have that supernatural ability to say something and you are still replaying it 3 days later. The question you got to ask is, what does this relationship do to me? Because, again, my brothers and sisters, you have been crammed with greatness. So we have to ask the question, am I being a good steward of the gift of life that I've been given? Am I being a good steward of that gift? And by the way, boundaries. If you struggle with this stuff, know that you're not alone. This is hard stuff. That's why we're talking about it. I don't have it nailed. Many of you don't have it nailed. That's why we need to talk about it. If we had it nailed, it would be uninteresting. We wouldn't be talking about it. If you struggle with this, you are not alone. If you have people that completely drain you in life, this is normal. This is natural. If you have people in your life who push your buttons, this is normal. If you're saying, well, Pastor, it's not just people who push my buttons. You got to understand, it's family members who push my buttons. Yeah, of course they do. They're the ones who install those buttons. This is normal. They're going to push your buttons. Now, I want to introduce you to a resource. It's a resource I've mentioned here before. It's a book called, wait for it, Boundaries. How about that clever title? Actually, this is considered a classic in the field. If you want to talk about boundaries, you have to read this book. It was written in the early 1990s by Henry Cloud and John Townsend, and just good basic information about boundaries. For many of you, this is not going to be mind-blowing stuff, but it's the good basic stuff that we need to be reminded about often. And in the opening pages, here's what they say about boundaries. Check it out. Any confusion of responsibility and ownership in our lives is a problem of boundaries. Just as homeowners set physical property lines around their land, we need to set mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual boundaries for our lives to help us distinguish what is our responsibility and what isn't. So when we're talking about boundaries, in a very real sense, we are talking about what is yours to carry and what isn't yours to carry. Now, how does your faith inform how you think about boundaries? Setting boundaries, I want to remind you all, it's a spiritual project. Having those firm boundaries in your life with those trying relationships, it's about being good stewards of the gift you've been given. And if you struggle with boundaries, let me make a suggestion. I know it sounds simple, naive. Pray. If you're there right now and you're struggling with boundaries right now in your life, invite God in. Ask for wisdom. Ask that God helps you set up these boundaries. to give you wisdom. Ask them for strength. Ask that God will help give strength to uphold these boundaries. Wisdom and strength. Because y'all know Jesus was all about relationships, right? But he also had incredibly strong boundaries in these relationships. In fact, when you read through the New Testament, when you read through the Gospels, there's story after story of Jesus leaving those people to go to a quiet place because Jesus had boundaries. There's also stories of Jesus being around people. Like this story in Luke chapter 12 where Jesus was among a crowd of people and someone shouts across the crowd and says, Jesus, tell this brother of mine to give me my share of the inheritance which is rightfully mine. You remember what Jesus said? Luke chapter 12. Dude, who sent me to be judge over you? In other words, he says, don't drag me into your mess. I know how y'all do. You want to drag me into your chaos. Don't do that. This isn't mine to handle. This is yours to handle. You figure it out. Not my mess, yours. There's another story in Matthew chapter 10 where Jesus is hanging out with his disciples, his best friends, and he's talking to them. And he says, look, when I'm gone, I want you guys to keep going to these different towns and villages. And go to them and let them know that God's love is for all people. It's not just for some. It's not just for the elites, but it's for those on the margins, especially those who've been kicked out. Let them know that God's love is for all people. But then he says this, if that village doesn't welcome you, in his words, if that village rejects you, remember what he says? Shake the dust off your feet and keep on moving. And y'all need to remember this. Jesus had boundaries even with those he loved the most. There's another story in Matthew chapter 16 where Jesus, again, he's with his disciples, his closest friends. And he's telling them that he's going to soon go to Jerusalem and things aren't going to end well because he's been a bit of a bad boy in the Roman Empire and the empire doesn't stand for it and his life is going to end on a cross. And Peter stands up and shouts, one of his closest friends, says, Jesus, you can't leave us. You can't go to Jerusalem. You know what Jesus said to him? It's some of the harshest words we have in Scripture. It's Jesus saying, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. It's like, dang. Jesus had boundaries, especially with the ones he loved the most. And finally, y'all, what do boundaries have to do with the greatness that's crammed inside of you? You want to be healthy this year? Want to be healthy in 2021? Get serious about setting up firm boundaries in the relationships that are preventing you from being the person that God created you to be. And I can hear some of y'all right now say, well, I don't want to be mean. That'll be mean. It's not about you being mean. It's about you knowing who you are. Created with, crowned with glory and honor. Get serious about boundaries. And when it comes to being around this person, because for many of you, you have this person in mind or these people, when it comes to being around this person, the snide remarks, the passive-aggressive comments that they love to make, the manipulation, the manipulating behavior, ask yourself this question. How long can I be around this person before I lose my true self? How long can I be around this person before I start to become someone that I don't like, someone I'm not created to be, before I become the old me? And listen, set up boundaries. Boundaries. If you have to go to that family reunion, for some of you, COVID has been a great gift in this way. If you go to that family reunion, if you're going to that gathering, if that person is coming into your home or you're going to their home or you've got to see them wherever, set up boundaries. Listen, I'm going to go, but I'm staying for 2 hours. Even if things are going well, I'm leaving after the 2 hours because that's how boundaries work. Don't wait for things to fall apart. Go in with a game plan. Maybe it's 90 minutes. Maybe it's 15 minutes. And stick to that boundary. We all need boundaries for not just people in our lives, but things in our lives too. And we've got to get serious about setting up those boundaries and sticking to them. You know, most of you know, because I share my story openly, and as Tammy just mentioned, I'm celebrating 8 years of sobriety just a couple of days ago. But But you know, I had a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol. As a recovering alcoholic, that's how it works. It was toxic. So when I was early in sobriety, especially early, especially my first year, I had to have some really firm boundaries around settings with alcohol. Thank God Tammy, my wife, was supportive of this. Thank God I could call people and help set up these boundaries. But what that meant is they were real boundaries. What it meant is if I was going to that Christmas party or that Christmas gathering, I would have to tell Tammy, look, we can only stay 1 hour tonight. And thankfully she supported that. Or even if Tammy wasn't there, I could call someone who had been through it, who'd been through addiction, who knew exactly the battle I was facing, and I could call them and say, hey, here's where I'm going, here's what it's going to be like, and I plan on staying this long, and I'm going to call you when I leave, because it's important to set up boundaries and then have some accountability. We've got to have boundaries. And let me speak for just a moment to those of you who are struggling right now with boundaries. Boundaries and having someone in your life that you love dearly who's battling addiction. Because you know, I hear people all the time say to me, they say, well, I guess I'm just supposed to take it. I'm the mom, I'm the dad, I'm the brother, I'm the sister. I guess I'm just supposed to take the manipulative behavior. I guess I'm just supposed to be walked on. I guess this is just my cross to bear. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Don't buy into that lie. You are not crowned with shame and guilt. You are crowned with glory and honor. And it's okay. It is okay. Permission granted. You don't have to refuse. You don't have to participate in their madness. You can refuse to do that. It doesn't make you mean. When it comes to dysfunctional family systems, when it comes to certain individuals, it is okay to walk away. And I know your impulse will say, this is mean, I can't do this, I love this person, I love them. And if you walk away, if you start setting up boundaries, well, they might kick and scream. They might start to act like a 2-year-old. You know what my 2-year-old does when I set up boundaries? When I tell my 2-year-old no, you know what he can do sometimes? On his best days, he'll lay on the floor, he'll start flailing his arms and legs around, and he'll start crying. But guess what? It's no good for me to get on the ground with them and start crying with them, or to start debating with them and trying to argue with them about why we're going to do it this way. You don't have to argue and debate when you start setting up boundaries. You can set up your boundaries and then you can stick to them. It doesn't mean they're going to last forever. They may change along the way, but you can stick to them for now. You don't have to debate with them. You don't have to argue, and you certainly don't have to behave poorly when they start behaving poorly. And again, it may seem mean. And your ego will hate you for this. Your ego will be terrified because your thinking is going to be, well, what are they going to think of me? What are people going to think of me? Am I doing it wrong? And it's not about any of that. It's not about what they're going to think. It's about you getting healthy. So my friends, you are crammed with greatness. You are crowned with glory and honor. Your life is a holy, sacred gift, and we are only 1 week in to 2021. Perhaps there are things that you need to let go of. Things that you need to walk away from so that you can actually live into that greatness that you've been crammed with. And it may be that thing that you're carrying, or the thing you're holding on to, that relationship or that toxicity. Maybe none of that's yours to carry. You know, a friend of mine often says, if it's too heavy, it's because you picked it up. And the good news is, if you picked it up, it also means you can put that thing back down. So I want you all to take a moment, and by a moment I mean 60 seconds, and reflect on the question, where do you need clearer boundaries in your life? Because the truth is, boundaries, this isn't just for the loved ones of. Boundaries, that's for all of us. That's for all of us. Where do you need clearer boundaries in your life? Maybe it's time for you to set some things down. Set up some boundaries so that you can be healthy again, so that you can live into the greatness that God created you to be, live into the person God created you to be. And before we throw that on the screen, let me just say this again. If you're one of the ones with us tonight and you're barely hanging on, you're saying, man, I'm here, but I'm barely here. And this boundary stuff, it's kicked my butt. It's got the best of me because I just don't have any, and I never did have any. If you're barely here, I want you to send us a private message on Facebook. Put in your phone number if you want a phone call. Someone will call you tonight. We have a team of people here who they're willing to call you if you need a little pick-me-up, if you need to know you're not forgotten about, you're not alone. And I want you to put your number in. They'll call you tonight. They're not going to wait till tomorrow or next week. They're going to actually call you tonight to let you know you're not forgotten. You're with us. You're part of us. Take a moment. And by the way, let me say, these people, they're not experts. They're not geniuses. They're just people who have been there, done that. People who have been through what you're going through. So take a moment and reflect. Thank you. All right, everybody, welcome back. We do have a guest storyteller. If you're new with us tonight, I know we have some new people with us tonight. We have a guest storyteller every Saturday night here. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of what makes free. We have a guest storyteller. We have shared experiences. Shandra is our guest storyteller tonight. I can't wait for y'all to meet Shandra. Many of you know Shandra. Shandra identifies as the loved one of an addict. She's going to share some of that story. She's also a counselor who deals with addiction and trauma, and so she's going to share some of that with us. So I don't want to say much more about Shandra other than her and Andrew are huge parts of this community. She helps welcome our new people when we get an email. We forward all those emails to Shandra. She's part of that team to welcome new people. And so help me welcome Shandra to the table. It's gonna go off.
I know.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hey, this is Shandra. Say hi to Shandra.
Hi.
If you're on the Facebook, like I am, show her some love. Hit the love button. I'm gonna hit the love button right now. Show her some love. Say hi to Shandra.
My sister better hit the love button.
Yeah, Sherry, you better. Listen, before we get started, can I say a word to Sherry?
Yeah.
Sherry, we've been talking about you all night. All night. We hear you've gotten a lot of people sober.
True.
That's kind of a joke, but it's actually true. She's been a part of the sobriety process for a long time. Sherry, we want you to come and be a guest storyteller. So I'm going to extend a personal invitation. Really, your sister has some glowing things to say about you. I know we've met before, but I've heard some of your story, and I want others to hear it too. So invitation for you to come and share some of your story with us. I can't wait.
Come on down.
I'm sure she said yes, right?
Yeah.
Did she just say yes to the
Yeah.
camera? She said yes. All right,
Yeah.
good.
Got you.
Chandra, so let's hear from you. So I told a little bit about you. You're the loved one of. You're also a counselor. Sherry, your sister, is actually was the start of your experience with
Yeah.
addiction. Should we start there?
Sure.
Let's start there.
So, my sister, who you guys have heard quite a bit about now, she runs some sober living homes. Prior to all of that, though, she struggled with her addiction for 10 years. And it's kind of at the age of 15, and I'm 5 years older. I don't usually tell people that, so, but, and she, I kind of was the abandoner. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to put boundaries in place. I just went to college and did my own thing.
Yeah.
And so then,
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yeah.
So when you abandoned, you said you just left. Was it because things were just too emotionally hard to deal with? Was it in the household? Was it just too chaotic? So hey, listen, I'm getting out of this mess. Was that it?
well, it was partly that, but I was also going to college, and I didn't know how to connect with her. She'd show up and want to drink and party, and I was worried about her drinking and partying, and so it was just a bad combo.
Yeah.
So, but when she did choose to get sober, I was there. The minute she called, I drove down. She was like, I'm ready to go to treatment. And I was like, and this is actually a funny story because she's like, the next day in treatment, I opened my bag and my swimsuit was in there. She's like, just the swimsuit top though. And I was like, you said you were going to treatment. I just grabbed whatever I could and threw it in a bag. But after that, from the minute she got out, I just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And from there,
What do you mean by that? Explain to people what you mean by I just want to be a part of what?
well, she started to, I started to see my sister come back.
Yeah.
And I started to see her come alive again. And I wanted to have everything to do with it. And so if she went somewhere, I was there. She started a sober living. I mowed the lawns. If there was something she was doing, I wanted to be a part of it.
Because I think the truth is, new life is always compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we see new life, part of us says, I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Hey, I want in on the action.
And it actually bloomed into something amazing. I ended up working for her company. I was a program manager, and then I was a marketer. I drove the treatment van, which was the best out of all of the jobs. Mowed the lawns. I mean, I just got to be a part of all of that, and really got to work with the recovery community and just loved every second.
Let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
So when you're watching a loved one battle, and I know this isn't in the notes. I didn't ask you this the other night, so it's I'm just pushing on you because I think people need to hear this. What's the hardest part about watching your loved one battle? I know why new life is attractive, right? What's the hardest part about watching them battle?
I think it's loving them so much and having absolutely no control over what they're going to do or what's going to happen. And so it's this battle inside of you, and it's this battle of emotions, of anger and fear and all of that. And there's nothing you can really do except be there when they're ready. And
Yeah.
that was really, really hard.
So it's realizing you don't have control over
Right.
this thing. That's hard.
And just, controlling what you can.
And Sherry wasn't the only one Sherry's not the only loved one in your life, right? Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I got engaged about a little over a year ago to an amazing man named Andrew. You guys saw him share. He wrote a letter to his addiction.
Powerful letter. We launched that,
Yeah.
when was it, 3 weeks ago? Powerful stuff.
Amazing man. And we actually met. I worked for the sober living, and he moved into the sober living. And I'd go to mow the lawns, and he would send me videos about how my lines weren't straight. And I was like, I know what's going on
Tell
here.
him progress, not perfection.
I know what he was trying to do there. So, we just became really great friends. And then he started to work for the program too. And then we were able to kind of date. And from there, it just was magic.
So explain to people why boundaries mattered in these relationships. Why have they been important? Where do you struggle with boundaries? Where do people who love addicts, where do they struggle? Where's the struggle?
Yeah, so I would say even as a counselor, it's so much easier to read about boundaries and to tell other people how to put boundaries in place. But then when you're in your own mess and you have all of that hurt and whatever is going on, it's hard. It's really hard to put boundaries in place. And so I would just say, for me personally, and I believe for most people, boundaries are important because they tell others how you want to be treated. So you're letting somebody know what you're okay with and what you're not. And they also create a space for respect, communication, and empowerment. So if you can do that for yourself by putting in a boundary, then I think it helps you to be healthier. And if you're healthier, then you can show up in the relationship that might not be so healthy in the moment.
Yeah, what you said to me the other day was, if I'm not healthy, I can't give anything to other people. And you said, I mean, there's a spiritual component to this too. You said, if I'm not healthy, God can't use me.
Yeah.
And I get, I mean, we talked about this. God can, of course, use everyone all the time, but God, you're not fully open to the best parts of what God can use in you to love other people.
Right.
And I think it's so important to notice this when we're talking about boundaries. It's, people will say, well, that's just starting with yourself. This is self-centered work. When you're talking about interior work, it's self-centered work. It's to get healthy so that we can actually make a dang difference out there when we walk out these doors, so that we can love other people well. It's not just about getting well so that we can go on and be happy. It's getting well so you can actually be who God created you to be, to make a difference in the lives of others.
Yeah.
So tell us about it.
Well, I also want to say with that, I think when you're healthy, you can see things the way they are. So you can look at the struggle with addiction separate from the person. So you can, when you are in a healthy place and you can put healthy boundaries in place, then I think that you are able to say, this is a disease and we are going to fight against it together, rather than you're doing this to me, I'm the victim. Be mad at that person, but really it's, you're mad at the disease, let's fight this together. And that includes boundaries as well. And that can look very tricky, but that's ultimately what you want to do.
Can you share with us some of the boundaries you had to set up along the way, and maybe even in a roundabout way or in a very straightforward way? How'd you do it? Speak to some of the practical pieces. Where'd you struggle? Where'd you fail?
There's been a lot of struggle.
I get it.
Okay, so we got engaged last October, and it was about 3 weeks after that he relapsed. And I had never seen Andrew like that. I had never seen that Andrew. And I literally just felt like my entire world was being flipped upside down. I was being triggered from past stuff. I was so scared and fearful of what it was going to look like. I just felt super chaotic. And a boundary that I put in place for myself was I know myself and I know I have a purpose, so I knew I couldn't stay. I didn't know if he was going to continue to drink. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I knew I had stuff to do. God uses me daily, so I'm like, I can't be in that, because then I won't be where I need to be. Yeah. So I left, and that was really hard. It's really hard to leave when you don't know what it's going to look like. Yeah. And you don't have the answers, and you don't know if there's hope. I had to move back in with my parents, which was super hard, but I knew it was what I needed to do for me. Luckily, he went to detox and got sober, and some other boundaries, I wasn't sure how to move forward, and I was super in my head about, is this going to keep happening? Is it truthful? Is it not truthful? And so some other boundaries I put in place, and I didn't know if he was going to accept them or not, but I said, I need to be able to see that you're working a program. I need to see that you're going to meetings and you have a sponsor, and that you're working the steps. But also from the counselor's side, I knew there was a deeper reason for why he needed to drink. And so I said, I need you to go to counseling. And luckily he agreed to all of those things. It didn't mean I moved back in, because I needed to see some things before we just jumped right back into things. But I put all those boundaries in place.
Yeah, and I love when we had a conversation the other day, you told me the importance, and I'm glad you gave me this reminder and this perspective of boundaries can change. Boundaries are flexible. Now, from my perspective, set up a boundary and stick to it, but it doesn't mean you're sticking to it for 10 years. I mean, you're not giving a 10-year commitment. You're saying for right now, this is what I need to stick to. But they can be flexible along the way. They may change along the way, and this is appropriate, right?
I would say boundaries can be flexible, but I would say if they're flexible in the sense that if you put a boundary in place and it doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't feel like something you can get behind and believe in and hold, put your word behind it, and you might need to change it a little bit so it fits you, because sometimes we set boundaries out of fear. So if we set a boundary, and actually I did this, and one of the things I had said to Andrew out of fear, didn't know that at the time, was that I said, if you relapse again, I'm gone. And I think I didn't realize it was out of fear out of the time. Honestly, I felt, okay, that's going to keep me safe. I also thought, that's going to make him not relapse again.
I'm going to show him how strong I am.
Yeah. Or just, I hope that scares him so he doesn't kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then after seeing him work and totally in love with this man, I was like, man, if he did relapse, I don't know if I could leave. So I went back to him and I said, hey, I know I told you this, but I'm not exactly sure where I'll be if you relapse. I might leave, I might not. I don't know right now, but I needed to flex that boundary. I'd also say with the flexibility piece, you get to choose if you flex it, if you are flexible with it. So if someone's trying to manipulate your boundary or pressure you or push, or they're not meeting your boundary, I don't think that's a good reason to be flexible with a boundary.
And I loved what you said about it too. Is it in integrity with who you are?
You have to be able to get behind it.
Yeah, and we can tell. I mean, we know when we're living out of alignment with our true self, out of alignment with who we're called to be. And so those boundaries, they have to be authentic to who we are. We can't set if you do this again, I'm out. If you do whatever, then this. Sometimes we want to do, I love how you describe that, out of fear, self-protection.
Yeah.
And Lori, I was reading some comments along the way. Lori kind of alluded to that. Lori Freeman said, boundaries are so important. When someone does not respect your boundaries, they are not respecting you. It is about them. It's not about the two-way relationship. Yeah, boundaries are about respect and respecting ourselves with those boundaries. And when they get crossed, having your boundaries crossed is no fun. It's not good.
I think that's another reason why they're important for you to be able to get behind. Because if you just set it, and then it is going to be, most people are going to push back on it.
Yeah.
And so if you put it in place and people push, and it really didn't come from your heart or where you are, then it's not going to stick. But if you really truly believe it, and you know it's what's best for you, and you know that it's going to make you your healthiest self, then you stand behind it because you know it's going to help you.
Talk to us a little bit about, let's close with this, the importance of grace. and because I started that way tonight, because I just know for our loved ones, and it's important for me to recognize I don't identify in that category. I've had loved ones along the way, and many of you know my brother died of this disease. I had an uncle die of this disease, but I identify primarily as the recovering alcoholic, right? For our loved ones, why is grace so important for you in setting up the boundaries, and when we're talking about boundaries?
I think grace is very important because nobody knows how to do this. There's no perfect way. There's no specific formula that you do to know how to handle these situations, and so you have to have grace for yourself. I think it's really important also to recognize that you don't know what this is going to bring up. So it's going to bring up, old stuff. It might bring up new stuff. It might bring up all sorts of stuff, and you don't know that until you're walking through it. But I do want to say that even though in the moment of the relapse and the rebuild and everything like that, the really cool thing was that I kind of thought I entered in the relationship and was like, I've been working on myself. Like, I'm pretty solid. I'm good. I'm like this healthy person for a relationship. And God took the relapse not only to grow Andrew, but he took the relapse and he showed me, I have a lot more work to do in you, and you have so much strength. And so how cool is that he took something that, felt kind of disastrous and made something really beautiful out of it to show us, I'm right here with you guys, and I'm going to continue to work on you.
You mean God can use our messes?
God definitely uses my mess.
Yeah.
All the time.
So if you're battling this stuff, give yourself some grace. We don't all know how to do it. We don't all know. None of us know exactly how to do this. It's unique. There's not a roadmap for this stuff. There's not a how-to. There's just ideas we can put into practice and practices that we can practice, right?
Be kind to yourself and know you're doing the best you can with what you've got.
All right, Shandra, in like 30 seconds, can you look at our people? You can look at the people in the room too, and look into that camera. And for those struggling, because I know, just in my experience, lots of people struggle with boundaries. What's one word of hope you can leave them with?
I think kind of what we were just saying. Just know that no matter where you're at and no matter what you're going through, that God can use it for good. Even though I felt like I was clouded and messy, and I had a lot of weight, the Lord not only took that and used it to strengthen me, but I had people still coming up to me saying like that I was still loving on them. So I think just knowing that if you take care of yourself, the Lord's going to take care of you, and then you can love on your loved one and be a team rather than an enemy or enemies. I think that's the best thing to take with you.
By the way, your sister said there was no pool there. There was no pool in the rehab.
She had her swim top just in case.
Just in case. You never know what kind of pools will arise in her life. She also said this, Sherry, Shandra's sister. Hi, Sherry. She says, in my addiction, the boundaries my family set with me hurt in the fear of losing them. However, opened my eyes what I was willing to sacrifice to this disease if I didn't find a solution. Yeah. Thank you for that, Sherry. Thank you for being with us, Shandra.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Let's give Shandra a round of applause.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
By the way, if you have questions you want to put to Sherry, if you want some resources from her, she said she'd be happy to share some of her resources.
Oh, now he's calling me Sherry.
Shandra, gee, Merry Christmas. She's going to be interacting on the thread, so if you want to keep the conversation going with Shandra, just type in your questions and she will get back to you at some point tonight. Type in your comments. Show her some love. Thank you, Shandra, for being with us.
Yes.
All right. Okay, y'all, we are going to move into our time. We close things around here with heartaches. You know, we do this work together. I want to share a quick story about heartaches because this is the time where we lift up the hard things that we deal with in life. And we believe in journeying with those things together. We don't journey through them alone. We lift them up to God, and God always hears the cries of the people. And all of a sudden it got really loud in here. It's crazy. It's like there's energy. But I wanted to share this with you. You know, the power of putting your phone number in the thread, and I get not everyone wants to do that, but someone on the other side of the country last week put their phone number in shoot, can I just say the name? Is that okay? Missy, if you're watching right now, I think you are, you were earlier, you put your phone number in, someone who is really struggling on the other side of the country who you had never met, you don't know from Adam, well, that person reached out to you this week for help. So when I say we do this work together, that's the power of getting vulnerable. That's the power of putting yourself out there. We carry the burdens together. So y'all, take 2 minutes. Give us the hard stuff. And listen, I want to, let me perhaps start it. I know it has been a difficult, challenging week in our country this week. I know for some of you it has rattled your cages. It has caused even more division among friends and family. It has caused more confusion. I get that. I also get we have to keep doing our thing here. I get the importance that just because those things are still going on, so is addiction. So is this epidemic that we're dealing with. So is the work of family members figuring out how in the hell to love their loved ones who are battling this disease. That's why we're talking about it. It's why we didn't take a break tonight to address everything happening in the country. We've got thoughts. I've got thoughts on that. I've got opinions on that. I've got actually theological opinions on that, spiritual opinions on that. But we're going to stay in our lane and talk about the things that where people in our community are dying over. So if you've been wondering that, I'm happy to have that conversation further with you. I also know the importance of lifting our country up in prayer because people are really struggling right now, and I get that, and I don't want to lose sight of that. It's why we need community, by the way, too. It's the most countercultural thing we can do tonight is be together in community, so I'm glad you're here. Take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and give us some heartaches. Glad to be with you all. Take 3 minutes and we'll come right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. You know what? We were talking in here, and I didn't even get a chance to look down at my phone to see some of your comments. So, as I do every Saturday night, I go home and we read all these, don't we?
Yes.
We read them. We usually rewatch and try to, because Facebook is a really weird algorithm where sometimes you can't see all the comments until you actually rewatch it and see the comments come in live. It's so bizarre. So oftentimes we have to watch the whole thing. Anyway, anything you want to start with?
Anything I want to start with?
Yeah,
Is there
I don't
something I need to start with?
No, we can start with comments from our
Okay.
people. Let's throw them on the screen.
All right, from Elizabeth. I really miss my mom. I pray every day she'll let me back in. I asked her to watch tonight, so if you are watching, Mom, I really do love you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Prayers for Elizabeth and her mom. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm always amazed at what this community lets us in on, the space you all feel freely to share in. We like that.
And I think it's neat, like, I just got to be your voice, and that's really special, so thank you for that. That's an honor.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. Cindy Rapp says, please lift my friend Debbie and her husband David in prayer as he has been hospitalized this weekend. All right, Cindy, thank you for sharing that. Prayers for Debbie and her husband.
Tina, wearing thin with the isolation of COVID.
Yeah.
I think I can resonate, and many in here are sighing, and I think many agree with you there.
Yeah. Thank you for lifting that up, Tina. We get lots of comments. When's Free going to be back open? We're waiting, y'all. We're not avoiding the question. We just don't know yet. So hang with us. Hang with us online. It'll happen. It'll happen. But the isolation is tough, isn't it? Thanks for lifting that up, Tina.
You get Shirley?
Shirley says, I'd like to lift my sweet neighbor and her family up in prayer. She lost her father this week to COVID.
Sorry.
Shirley, prayers for your sweet neighbor and her family and the loss.
Lisa?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that,
Name's
Shirley.
Lisa.
Prayers for them. What's that?
Her name is Lisa.
Her name's Lisa. All right, prayers for Lisa and her family.
Hey, Crystal. She says strength from temptation and early recovery.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Crystal. Prayers for you. And Crystal, is it her first time with us?
I believe so.
Crystal, I think you're new with us, so a huge, huge free welcome to you. I'm glad you're in this community, and I see you're in early recovery. Prayers, prayers, prayers. Keep on going, sister.
Yeah. Keep on coming back. Thanks for being here.
Is it mine? It's mine. Pamela says, one of my cousins tested positive for COVID. She is sick, but so far is at home. Prayers for your cousin. Thank you for lifting them up, Pamela. We're going to be praying for your cousin.
There's Tawny right in front of me.
Uh-huh.
Tawny says, please pray for Carrie, as she just found out 2 of her friends have cancer. Yeah. Mama
Yeah.
Carrie.
Mama Carrie.
Sorry,
Prayers
Carrie.
for 2 of your friends and prayers for you going through that with them. Kevin says, heading to jail tomorrow morning to post bail after 7 months clean, 2 divorces, and many bad choices. Hopefully can stay in faith as I see it in others and the blessings of sober friends. Kevin, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for being vulnerable with this community. And I'm glad you're on a good track right now and going to pay some bail. And prayers for you. Heavy, heavy times. Thank you for sharing that with us. Prayers for you. Kevin, it might be your first time with us too, Kevin.
so.
I'm just, it's a new name, so if you've been with us before, my apologies, but welcome to Free. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for sharing. Prayers for you this week. All right, let's do one more, shall we?
All right. Jesse says, day 2 after my relapse. I'm glad someone told me about you. Man, a lot of new people sharing.
Yeah.
I love it. I appreciate it. And just so you guys know, like, that's what we do here.
Yep.
We don't sugarcoat things. We put it all out on the table. So thank you for joining in the community and doing what we do here. And you're loved and you're appreciated.
And Jesse, and for those of you other new to this community was actually designed and created for you, for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And I'm so glad you could share. It's day 2 after your relapse. In some places, you're going to get some shame over that. What do we say here? We don't do shame. We can all scream it together. We all need to get tattoos of that, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, let's pray about that. Jesse, prayers for you. Speaking of not doing shame, you want to sit with me for just a minute?
Sure.
Because what this thing behind me, I'm going to stand up for just a moment. This wagon behind me represents the work that we do together. It's a central image in this community. It's always been a central image of this community. In fact, this exact wagon, this wooden wagon, where did we buy it? Was it
Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah,
Okay,
you
we
can
bought
get one for
it-
your house too. Put your plants in it.
I built it actually, guys. That's what really happened. Now, we bought it on Amazon. It's been with us in the backyard from the very beginning. It has been with us, and it represents us doing the work together. If you fall off the wagon, whether that's sobriety, whether that's the wagon of light, whatever it is, we don't kick the wounded. We don't do shame. We don't let you know how bad you are and how stupid you are. No, we don't do that. What we do is we help you get back on. We believe in doing the work together of healing, of connection, spiritual recovery, spiritual connection. That's the work we do here. And as you can see on this wagon sits a donation box. We have donation box scattered throughout free. And really, y'all, we encourage generous giving here. It's your giving that keeps the doors, I was going to say doors open, even though we're closed right now. It's your giving here that keeps this thing going, that keeps this community going, that keeps the mission thriving, the mission of creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. If you believe in what we're doing here, if you've been moved by the mission, if you've been impacted, if your life has been changed or touched in any way, we do encourage you to give. If you call this place home, we encourage you to give. And I just want to let you know, there's 3 ways to give in this community. And the first way, we'll keep them really short and simple. The first way is to download the app. We spoke of the app a little bit ago. Download the app. You can give there weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, however you want to do it. Safe, simple, secure. Or you can go directly to the website and click on give and do the same thing. Or you can text the number on your screen, text to them, be the wagon, and they will send you back a set of instructions. It's simple. And listen, it truly does. Your giving helps keep the mission thriving. So thank you all very much for your giving and being a part of this mission and part of this community. I think we should go out with a prayer tonight. It is 8:07. By the way, if you're wondering, how long do they go? We usually finish by 8 to 8:15 here. So we go an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. In person, we always went an hour and 15 minutes. But we realize we're online now and things can get shorter. All right, y'all. I encourage you to open your hands. It's a sign of openness wherever you are, in the kitchen and the living room with your free circle. Invite God in this moment. I want to introduce you to a new prayer. Some of you know this prayer. It's called the 7th step prayer. If you don't know it, it's on your screen. And the 7th step prayer goes like this. Let's say it together. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. My brothers and sisters, may you this week experience lots and lots of grace and peace in the midst of some heavy times, and may you remember the importance of boundaries. Remember, God created you and crammed you, stuffed you with all kinds of greatness. You are crowned with glory and honor. I love y'all, and we will see you next time. Grace and peace. you.